Maybe the
We all gathered today for the launch of this book, Beyond Limits, authored by Ashish. So most of you know me, but just in case some of the new faces. So let me introduce myself. I'm Ranjan. I've been in the corporate field for more than 30 years, and in my last stint, I was a CFO. Presently, I'm the treasurer of Nayati, doing voluntary work. So during my stint in corporate, I always noticed there are a lot of professionals who are stressed and overwhelmed with responsibilities. So there's a compelling need to, keep up one's spirit and remain motivated. So when Ashish asked me to anchor this book on motivation, I jumped at this because it's something which I feel there's a compelling need for that, given the stresses that people go through. So, and Ashish fortunately shared the book with me, so I had the privilege of reading this book as well. So in this book, what I felt is this merges traditional wisdom, practical insights, rich anecdotes, and personal experiences also. So he's created a very holistic blend, which will keep you motivated and yet at the same time help you stay grounded. This is something which is a unique feature of this book. Now, one of the things that I've noticed is that it's drawn extensively from ancient philosophies, timeless proverbs, and lessons which have stood the test of time. And the best part about this book is that there are so many times when he has himself, there's a personal touch to the book because he has given his own experiences, his own, what the challenges that he has faced and the challenges and how he has overcome it. So that's a lot of personal touch to this book, so the reader can relate to it. So when you look at this book from whichever perspective, it is like it sums up a lot of things, and it's required of the contemporary stresses that people go through. This book is an absolute essential because it will keep you, on track and provides the right motivation when you're going through stressful times. So, without further ado, I'll now ask Ashish to introduce himself, and we can take this forward. Ashish.
Thank you, Ranjan, for that wonderful intro to the book. We have seen each other over walks, but may not really known each other, so I'll take a minute to introduce myself. I worked in the corporate sector for about 25 years, largely in the financial services, health and life insurance. And currently I'm a consultant to a US-based organization. And I also run a company called Mindful Living, which is into training and coaching. And by education, I'm an MBA from Symbiosis, Pune. So that's when I came to Pune first time in 1991 and fell in love with the place. And we are so lucky to be living here now for the last 3 years after having lived in Bombay, Delhi, Calcutta, Pune, and Ahmedabad and Pune, and now in Pune. So that's in brief about me, and just turned an author, so that's something I'm very excited about. Thank you.
So congrats, Ashish, for this. So let me start with the first obvious one. What was the inspiration in writing this book, and how long did it take you to write this?
Thank you. So in my work as a trainer and coach, I would share these stories which I heard over my lifetime from different people, from my mom, from coaches, bosses. And whenever I would share these stories in my training sessions or coaching sessions, I would sense an aha moment, something moving for people, something changing, and I could sense that a shift has taken place. But that would happen one at a time, and it would happen like over the course of a couple of years it was happening, and then I thought, why not get them together, get all these stories together for people so that they can benefit from how they apply to our lives. Like we had Jatak tales and Panchatantra tales when we were growing up. What is it for the adults, and to deal with the corporate life? So this is my version of Jatak and Panchatantra for the corporate world professionals. So that's what, and it took me about a year. So I started working on it around September, October last year, and I finished writing in July, August this year.
So that's great. So since I've read this book, one thing I want to ask you is every chapter that I've seen, it starts with a proverb, illustrates a story, and then ends with points of reflection. This is a very unique way of presenting it. So why don't you tell us how did you get onto this style?
So one of the books I have been deeply influenced by is The Magic by Rhonda Byrne. And there she follows this pattern. She is the title of the book, there are proverb, and she writes, and then she finishes it with exercises one can do for each chapter. And the magic is not in reading the book. The magic is when you practice what she has asked you to do at the end of each chapter. And that completely transformed my life when I read it for the first time in July 2020. So when I was coming up with this book, it was quite obvious that I follow a book which has deeply influenced me. So we have these are short stories, about 1,000 words each. We have kept them short because the attention span these days are dwindling, so we don't want to keep it like a long text. So each story is about 2, 3, 4, 5 pages at the maximum. There are about 42 stories in all, about 200 pages book. And so yeah, and the stories you may have heard of earlier, but the perspective as Ranjan shared, that is unique. And the questions at the end of each book is where the magic lies. So when you reflect on those questions, that is when the real magic would happen. So that is how we came up with this, and that also resonates a lot with the work I do as a coach, where rather than telling people what they should do, we help them get the answers to their challenges from within themselves, because our belief is everybody knows what is best for them. So rather than tell them, guide them in finding out what's best for them. So that's why those reflection questions. Thank you.
So apart from the students, who's your target audience then?
So, having worked in the corporate sector for 25 years, I have seen at very close quarters how a roller coaster the corporate life is. And when it's going up, it's all good. But when it comes crashing down, sometimes people take their own lives. We saw this young chartered accountant in Ernst & Young who couldn't deal with the pressure which was there in the company. Or I have seen my friends drink themselves to death. There are many challenges which happen. So that is what I thought, so it's targeted at corporate professionals, either those who are facing challenges in their life or those who want to thrive, so you don't necessarily need to go through a challenge to have that learning. You could have that learning in advance. Like in army, they say the more you sweat in peace, the less you bleed in war. So this is like that practice. So whether you're facing a challenge or not, you could read the book. And while it is written keeping the corporate professionals in mind, the feedback that I'm getting is the stories and the message resonate with everybody. So students or anyone else can read it and benefit from it.
So now that you've written this book as an author, if there's one story you want to pick, which one would that be?
That's a difficult one. And because
Chinese wali
the Chinese bamboo, and
सभी इनके बच्चे हैं.
हाँ.
You are asking him to nominate one.
So it's like asking a mother to pick up which one is your favorite daughter or son. But push come to shove, I would pick up the one about Gautam Buddha, which is titled Giver's Gain. And this is a book, this is a story I always choke whenever I talk about it, because through a particularly tough time, when I started out on my own, there was a period when it was very difficult for me. And I was wondering, what have I got myself into with 2 young daughters and responsibility of a family, whether I did the right thing by starting out on my own. And when I heard the story, this is about giving. So I'll share the story briefly with you. So Gautam Buddha is going begging for alms, and he comes to a hut, and that family didn't have anything to offer to Buddha that day. So the mother felt, the lady of the house felt very ashamed, and she asked her young daughter to go out and tell Buddha that we have nothing to give today. And the young kid doesn't realize what's happening, so she runs out, and she was about to tell Buddha that we don't have anything to give. But Buddha, being Buddha, he could sense what she's going to say, and she's kind of raised his hands and asked her to stop midway, or stop before she could speak. And then he tells her that, you see that dirt lying on the floor, you pick it up and give it to me. So the girl didn't realize what she was doing. She picked up the dirt and put it in the bowl. And Buddha and his disciple quietly walked away. And after they walked a few steps, the disciple was like furious. He said, Buddha, what have you done? We hardly had anything to eat today, and now you ask the girl to put dirt on it, so we practically have to go hungry today. And Buddha said something which blew my mind. He said, we may go hungry for today, but the lesson that girl has learned will help her a lifetime. And the lesson is that you always have something to give. And that time I didn't have anything to give. And I wondered when I listened to the story, what is it that I can give? And then I started giving smiles to people. You know, I thought that's something I can give. Then we started offering water to birds. We used to live in Gurgaon that time. It's very hot. And till date, we always have a bowl with water for birds. And then when I would go for making pitches for business, rather than ask for business, I would ask them, what is the problem your business is facing? How can I solve? You know, so offering them solutions. Give them solution. Not ask for business, but how can I offer you a solution? And one thing led to other. And I haven't looked back since then. Year on year, every year we have been growing. So givers, whenever I share this story, there is a lot of pushback I get. You know, how can we give? We'll be ruined if I give. So I said, नहीं इतना देने की जरूरत नहीं. आप जितना comfortably दे सकते हो, उतना दो. But आप देते रहेंगे तो भगवान भी आपको देते रहता है. मतलब this has become a strategy for me. That's my business strategy now. Keep giving and more will keep coming.
He always says कि मतलब कभी खाली नहीं होता. आप दोगे तो अब जैसे एक्वागार्ड, आप नीचे से निकालोगे ऊपर से पानी आएगा ही. If you give, तो you will get. ये उसका वो है. He always tells me, if you give, you will get. I think this already in the एक्वागार्ड. नीचे से पानी निकालेंगे ऊपर से भर ही जाएगा. That's true.
And thank you. And related to this is giving gratitude. So there is another story on 99 gold coins. So giving solutions or giving gratitude, saying thanks is something which is very, very powerful. So thank you for that, Kanchan.
Well, you have talked about Buddha's stories, and some of the stories which I picked on were, things like sharpening of axe, importance of collaboration versus competition, and confronting fears. Now, these are some things which resonate with everyone. So, just a very brief, your take on that.
So there are 42 stories, and all of them are powerful. And you may find your own golden nugget there, but some of them are about facing your fears. And when I was in the corporate sector, there was always this fear ki naukri kab jayegi, you would never know. And then then ultimately I faced my fear, and then I started out on my own in 2018. And the story which is there is about Swami Vivekananda. When he was a kid, he was going through jungle, and he's chased by a group of monkeys. So, they're growling and they're running after him and they're chasing him. And he's a kid, so he's just running and running and running. And then, he's like, he comes across a sadhu, and sadhu says, you just stop and turn around. And he kind of grinded to a halt, and then he turned around. And then, the monkeys are still growling, but the growls get lesser and they, over a period of time, disperse. So the message is, when we are running away from our fears, the fears keep running after you. But when you turn and face your fear, then it dissipates. And so my fear was, the fear of losing job, because I was the sole bread earner. And what happens if I don't have a job? So I was working overtime, killing myself working, workaholics, that is what I have. But then I eventually faced it, and I'm doing very, very well. Yeah.
Successful.
Yeah, thank you. The other one's what? Sharpening of axe. So, corporate sector, most of the people I know, they're very, very busy. They're working like 12 hours, 15 hours, 6 days, 7 days, and there is no respite. And we don't take time to renew, but it is very powerful to pause and renew ourselves. And there are 4 dimensions of renewal: physical, intellectual, social, and spiritual. So it makes sense. And when we take that time out, that investment of time gives a return which is many, many times higher. So rather than just going through the motions, if we stop and take time. So the story is, there is a woodcutter in the jungle who's so busy working that he doesn't take time to sharpen his axe. And then he works like many, many hours. But so one day somebody asked him, who's passing by, who's seeing him struggling, why don't you just take some rest and sharpen your saw, you will cut mud. And he yells back at him and says that, can't you see I'm so busy, I have so much work to do. And that is the story of many people we know, that we are so busy, we don't take time to read, we don't take time to exercise, we don't take time to socialize or sharpen our axe in many other ways. And which is so beautiful because it just pays itself many times over. So the return on investment on self gives the highest return. So that's what sharpening the axe is about. So another story is about competition versus collaboration. And while I was in the corporate sector,
there's a request that people at the back can't hear. So if you can speak a little bit more loudly.
Louder?
Yes,
okay.
louder.
This is
Thank
better?
you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I perceive.
That's good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So when I was in the corporate sector, it was a race, and who wins? The one who runs the fastest. And then I came across this very beautiful story in which a expat, a Westerner, goes to an African jungle. And this one completely changed my perspective about competition versus collaboration. And he gathers a group of children and he says, you run a race from here to the tree you see there, and the one who runs the fastest will win the prize. And what happens next was completely mind-blowing. There were but 12 children in the group. They all held each other's hands and they ran together to the tree. And they all won the prize together. And that completely shifted my perspective about competition. After that, I stopped competing. I said, if I take people along with me, that's much better. Even if it means going slower, but that's much, much better than running and winning faster. So that was a big change for me. Yeah. Thank you.
These stories really resonate to everyone. So, as an author, what would you consider to be your greatest reward? I mean, for after people read this book.
So there was a movie in 1983, Ardha Satya. Some of you may have seen that movie. It's a very hard-hitting movie on corruption in the political and police system. Made by Govind Nihalani. And so people asked him, why have you made this movie? And so he says that even if one cop becomes honest after watching this movie, I would consider that my effort have been worthwhile. And I would say the same, that even if one person gets hope, one person moves up from living with fear, from surviving to thriving mode, becomes happier. And why it is important for me that people become happier? Because the happiness does not contain to the person who becomes happier. Then it radiates to his family, then it radiates to his team and everybody. So it's got a massive ripple effect. And that, in other words, means it has an infinite impact. So even if one person becomes happier, I think it will be worth it. Or if one person, I wish this book would have reached the CA, I feel a lot about her. She shouldn't have lost her life. She shouldn't have taken her life. So if it gives somebody hope and saves somebody's life, then I think it's worth it. Thank you.
It's a very, very noble thought. So now that people have got some idea, about this book, which honestly blends your practical stuff today with the traditional theory and the wisdom. So, it's superbly, I've read that book, it's extremely good. So, okay, so one wants to buy it, where can one buy it?
Thank you. Sylvia, I think it's okay. So we've got limited copies here. So in case you would like to buy it here, you can buy it here. It's also available on Amazon, both in India and internationally, and Flipkart, Kindle, everywhere it's available. If you buy here, you can get a personally signed copy from me.
So that's yeah. So now we'll open the floor to the audience. If anybody has a question to ask.
I want to ask one question, Ashish. There are so many stories in your book. Which one you find that will help our daughters in future?
Yeah, like I said, each one would have their own take, but there is one about acceptance, which is about a prince and a girl's beauty. I won't tell you what the story is. Maybe she can buy the book and read it. Or
Personally side.
Personally,
the last one, the 42.
Anybody else who would like to ask any question? Yeah.
when is your next book coming up?
Probably around the same time this year. Next year, 2025.
That's good.
Yeah.
We look forward to it.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Rajni.
Yeah.
What process, what went in to select the cover page? I know you have put in various forums.
Yes,
and
yes.
A lot of people had
Yes,
different
yes.
ideas. What were your thoughts? What were your thoughts?
So there were two, we finalized between two. One was the one with the lady on the cover and the other one is this one. And I picked up this one because this looks more corpo-like, you know, more corporate-like. And considering the fact that we wrote it for corporate professionals, we kept it plain and simple like that. So it was almost equally divided between yellow and black, and we went with this one.
And what
This
that
is-
means that a man pushing L.
So all these stories helped me push my limits and continue to get my life better and better. That is something which I am very excited about, pushing the limits of growth. How can you keep growing? So these stories are immensely powerful in helping you break those boundaries. And that is why you have the infinity sign also below.
Yeah.
So these are offered with infinite love to you, you know, and they help you grow infinitely. So that's the purpose. Yeah.
How did you feel when you reached, when you wrote the end?
The last
When
one.
did that happen? The last one, when you finished it and you said, okay, this book is ready now.
Yeah, so it's interesting you asked that because earlier I used to think that writing is the difficult part, but when I wrote it, I realized editing and publishing is the most difficult part. So somewhere that feeling got lost in the process of multiple iterations in editing and publishing and designing, and you know the color of this, we would have gone like 10, 15, 20 shades, which shade to pick, and a lot of debate and feedback around it. So somewhere around that
And have you ended it with a sequel of it? Somewhere?
There are so all these stories have not been covered in this. You're right. Maybe we will come back with another one which has few more stories, and I invite you to share with me. I have shared my email ID also to share with me stories that may have moved you or may have made an impact in your lives, and I hope to be able to collect some of them, you know, through the next 1 year, and then come up with an updated version of this one. Thank you.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
a
yeah.
nice idea.
So if you have any stories, please do that. Made an
Because
impact.
as a
Yeah.
concept, this is, you can
I've-
do round 2, round 3, round
Yes,
4.
yes, yes, yes. Correct.
There's no end to it.
Yeah.
Corporate problems don't have an end, so we can keep adding.
And the beauty of this book is not only corporate problems, it will resonate with everybody. Be
Yeah,
a
that's
businessman, be it a professor, it will resonate with everyone.
Like there is a very beautiful story. Dheeraj, you asked that, so let me share that, which I did cover in this book, which is about Indra. And you know, somebody shared with me that when it comes to mythology, don't go for checking whether it is factually correct or not. Go for the message that's there in the story. So listen to this. Indra used to live on the Mount Meru, and below him was a web of jewels, you know, each connected to other, and each jewel reflects each other, and it's infinity. So imagine that there is a web of jewels, like this web is there, and each one interconnected with a jewel, transparent, completely transparent jewel, and reflecting each other. Now think of it in terms of humanity. We are that web, and we are all reflection of each other. So what I see in you is what you see in me. We are all reflecting each other, and that's such a powerful concept, that we are all reflections of each other. So that I find very moving. हम सोचते हैं कि ये ऐसा है, वो ऐसा है, but वो नहीं, वो मेरा ही reflection है, and it's infinite, it's infinity. So that's another story which I find very powerful, but it's not covered in this. So maybe over the next couple of months or year we will gather some more like these and share.
Anything to inspire the senior citizens?
Like
we've already gone through all the ups and downs in the life.
Yeah,
Most of your stories are for the inspiration for the youngsters.
Yes, so there is one about acceptance, which is the prince and the cursed beauty. Maybe that one, or any other, depending on what resonates with you. So, as I mentioned earlier, there are multiple layers to these stories, and हमने किताब में एक ही dimension निकाला है उस story का, but there can be multiple dimensions to that story. So when you read these stories, it will, I think, fascinate you.
Good.
So, any more?
Advice for anybody else who wants to start on this journey of writing a book.
That is very tough.
It's fascinating.
That is very tough. You need to have
It's a fascinating journey, but as I mentioned earlier, writing is the easiest part. What happens after that is far more difficult. So it's like, if writing is 1, publishing is like 9. So be careful about that, but do write. It's worth it. It's worth it. Every story needs to be told. That's what I would say. So, and there are many formats. You can publish it as an e-book. So there are many formats. It's very friendly now for writers. So do explore it, and I would encourage you to put your story. Mom is writing a book now, so she's compiling her stories. Yeah, she's written a few.
Nice, very nice.
Did you publish it through Amazon?
Yes, it's through Kindle. Through Kindle.
No.
Hard copy?
It's available on
Yes.
Amazon.
It's Amazon. Yeah.
Did you use their publishing?
So the print is through Gurukul Publishing in Hyderabad, and the Kindle is through Amazon.
So if anybody doesn't have questions, again, Ashish, congratulations.
Thank you.
For coming out such a good book, which combines spiritual wisdom and contemporary work problems, and yet provides motivation on a sustainable basis. So it's a very, very good combo, very uniquely presented. So congratulations again. Thank you.
Thank you, Ranjan. Thank you so much.
Now, like to invite you to join us for cake cutting. Since the